Hey friends, it's Somer, and we just got the first of the 5 Dragonstorm Commander Precon decks revealed. This is Jeskai Striker. This is a blue-red-white deck that is focused on 2 main themes, the first being casting 2 or more spells each turn to activate Flurry, and also it's Spell Slinger, so it has a heavy emphasis on instant and sorcery spells. So in this video, we're going to check out all the cards that are coming in the Precon, starting with the 10 brand new cards that are exclusive to the deck, and then we're going to check out the rest of the deck, the reprints, before I give my final analysis, my first impressions of the Precon as a whole. And I will also note, by the way, out of all the 3 colors, I'm by far the biggest fan of Jeskai, so I'm the most excited for this Precon. This is definitely my style of play. I like being aggressive. I like casting a lot of non-creature spells to pump up my team. These are all things that very much excite me. This is right up my alley. But before we begin, 2 quick reminders. First, you can find all the Cons Dragonstorm previews over at mtgpreviews.com. I'm only covering the Commander cards here on the Commander channel, so if you want to see all the standard legal cards, you go head on over to the main channel where Seth is covering them and doing daily spoiler videos over there. And secondly, if you want to pre-order these sweet new Precons, you can do so over at our sponsor, cardkingdom.com/mtggoldfish. Okay, Jeskai Striker comes with 2 legendary creatures that can lead the deck, and we're going to start with the first one, the face commander of the deck, Shiko and Narset Unified. This is a 4-mana Jeskai 4/4 legendary creature, human spirit dragon. It has flying, vigilance, and flurry. Flurry is a brand new mechanic for Jeskai in Dragonstorm, and it says whenever you cast your second spell each turn, something cool happens. So in this case, whenever you cast your second spell each turn, copy that spell if it targets a permanent or player, and you may choose new targets for the copy. If you don't copy a spell this way, draw a card. So the floor of this flurry ability, if you cast 2 spells in a single turn, you get to draw cards. That's already pretty decent. However, if that second spell targets something, a permanent or a player, you get to just straight up copy that spell, which is really, really good. So face commanders usually tell you what the Precon is all about, and in the case of Shiko and Narset, it's telling you very clearly that it's rewarding you for casting at least 2 spells in a single turn to activate Flurry, draw your cards, and also it's going to have a little bit of a sub-theme going on of a bunch of spells that can target players or permanents, so you can copy them and get even more value out of it. Now, as the leader of the Precon, it's already really good, but I just wanted to make a quick note. Outside of the Precon, if you're just taking Shiko and Narset and either upgrading the deck or just building it from scratch, certain cards are going to be really, really exciting with Shiko and Narset. First of all, if you want to go full salt and you want to go straight to like bracket 4 or whatever, you can load up with extra turn spells, as many iterations of Narset decks love to do. And Shiko and Narset is no different. So Time Warp happens to target a player as part of its resolution, so Shiko Narset can just straight up copy it if it's the second spell you cast that turn. Then you just take 2 extra turns for the price of 1, which is fantastic. And Shiko Narset also works really well as a Jeskai Auras commander, because auras always have to target something. That's part of being an aura. So if you cast like 1 spell and then your second spell is like a Sage's Reverie, you can draw oodles of cards and also pump the crap out of a lucky recipient of that aura too. So yeah, Shiko Narset, really, really powerful. You can go maximum salt, chaining extra turn spells, or you can play something a little bit more chill by like being auras, or you could just stick to whatever the stock list is doing, which is more focused on instants and sorceries. The secondary commander is all about combat. This is Elsha, Threefold Master. It's a 3-mana Jeskai legendary creature, Jin Monk. It's a 1/1 with trample and prowess, and whenever Elsha deals combat damage to a player, create that many 1/1 white monk creature tokens with prowess. So it has kind of like Monk Link. The more damage you deal with Elsha, more combat damage you deal with Elsha, the more monks you create with prowess, and then you cast a bunch of non-creature spells, you pump up Elsha, and you pump up your team of monk creatures, you deal a lot of damage, and then Elsha will make even more monks, so then the following combat, you deal even more damage, and hopefully your opponents die fairly quickly. So this is all about going wide with tokens, and pumping up the team with non-creature spells to trigger prowess, and just like going for combat, going for damage. I'm a big fan of Elsha. One of my favorite Jeskai commanders is Narset Enlightened Exile, and it kind of does the same thing as what Elsha is doing. It's also a go-wide commander. It also gives your entire team prowess, essentially. It also benefits from having like a bunch of tokens that you can pump up and stuff, and it cares about casting non-creature spells, obviously. So either you have Narset in the command zone. I think Narset is still more powerful, but Elsha is also great in the command zone too. They're kind of replaceable if you want to build around Elsha instead. And also like cool cards like Flying Crane Technique are going to be super fun with both of these builds where you just like, you're go wide, you have a bunch of creatures and you suddenly get them all flying in Double Strike and Alpha Strike with a Flying Crane Technique. It's going to be super fun. All right, so those were the new legendary creatures that can lead the deck. Now we're going to be checking out the 8 other cards that are brand new and exclusive to the precon. And we start with Voracious Bibliophile. It's a 4-mana blue creature dragon. It's a 3/3 with flying and vigilance. And whenever you cast a spell with 1 or more targets, draw that many cards. So again, this stock list is focusing on spells, like it's focusing heavily on instants and sorceries, but specifically instants and sorceries that target things. And that's going to help our face commanders, Shiko and Narset, but it's also going to help cards like Voracious Bibliophile, where, you know, if you target a thing, you get to draw a card, which is quite nice. And if you get to target multiple things, you get to draw even more cards, which is extra nice. So this card is pretty efficient, but there is quite the hoop you have to jump through. You have to not just cast like instant sorceries, you have to cast spells that target things to get your card draw. But, you know, the power ceiling of this is really, really high. Some cards that immediately come to mind, they're not in the precon, but are good things to add to a deck that has Voracious Bibliophile. Something like March of Swirling Mist. I absolutely love this card. It's flexible protection that can also double as just like removing a creature temporarily, like if somebody's attacking you or something like that. And it can target multiple creatures. So that means you can easily draw multiple cards off the Voracious Bibliophile. And obviously the best home for this new dragon is going to be in a Hinata deck, which is all about casting big spells that target multiple different things. So Hinata, if you cast like a March of the Swirling Mist and you target like all the creatures on the battlefield or whatever, you just get to draw oodles of cards, and that's fantastic. So Voracious Bibliophile, it's fine in the stock precon. Obviously, it reaches maximum potential in a Hinata list. The next card that's new is Caldera Pyramaw. This is a 5-mana red creature dragon. It's a 3/3 flying, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Then this creature deals damage equal to its power to target opponent. So this kind of drives home the main sub-theme of the deck. This is all about casting non-creature spells, true, but it's specifically focused on instants and sorcery spells, and that's what Caldera Pyramaw is really wanting you to do, is the more instant and sorcery spells you cast, the more large the Pyramaw becomes, and also the more damage it deals to opponents. Again, outside of the precon, certain things to really maximize its potential is like slapping on a Curiosity on the Pyramaw. So every single time you're casting an instant and sorcery, not only are you growing the Pyramaw with +1/+1 counters and dealing damage to your opponents, but then also you're drawing a card every single time it's happening. And this it very much easily slides into like a Niv-Mizzet Visionary deck, or even other Niv-Mizzet decks too, where, you know, whenever you're triggering the Pyramaw, you're going to be drawing oodles of cards off Niv-Mizzet as well. The next new card is Transforming Flourish. This is a 3-mana red instant with Demonstrate. Demonstrate is a mechanic from Strixhaven that's returning over here. It says when you cast a spell, you may copy it. If you do, choose an opponent to also copy it. Players may choose new targets for their copies. So you get to cast it once, or you can let an opponent copy it, and then you get an extra copy of it as well. So it's kind of group huggy, but can allow you to double spell this ability for no extra mana or anything. And it says destroy target artifact or creature you don't control. If that permanent is destroyed this way, its control exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card. Then they may cast that card without paying its mana cost. So this is instant speed removal that gets rid of artifacts and creatures. Red is very good at dealing with artifacts, but for creatures, it can't just like snipe any creature super easily. Usually it has to deal damage to them. So bigger creatures are often a problem for red. This just straight up destroys any creature without any hassle. However, your opponent gets to replace whatever you destroy with something, with a guaranteed spell off the top of the library. It might not be a useful spell. They might whiff and they'll like hit a counter spell or something that they can't even cast, but they're going to get something. And for that reason, I don't really like Transforming Flourish too much. I'm sure there's going to be some homes for it, especially because it has Demonstrate. So if you can really utilize the Demonstrate ability in certain decks, then it gets a lot better. But I think just as general removal, I don't really like it, and I'm not a big fan of it in the stock list either. The next new card is Will of the Jeskai, and this is a card I am a very big fan of, both in the stock list and just in Magic in general, honestly. It's a 4-mana red sorcery that says choose one. If you control a commander as you cast a spell, you may choose both instead. So both modes are, one mode is each player may discard their hand and draw 5 cards, or the other mode is each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. That flashback cost is equal to its mana cost. So if you don't have your commander out, you choose one of the modes, but if you have your commander out, like all the other Will spells, you get both modes, and then it's super powerful. Now, Will of the Jeskai is essentially a mini windfall effect, a wheel, for you, but it's also optional for all of your opponents. And it's also a Past in Flames. It does the same thing as Past in Flames, except it doesn't have flashback itself. And putting both on the same card is really good, actually. Being able to just refill your entire hand is really nice. Not your entire hand, up to 5. It's not up to 7, it's up to 5. But still, if this is like the last spell you cast, it essentially reads like you get to draw 5 cards, which is very good. And then Past in Flames is just very, very good in spell slinger decks. Is it like an auto-include? Is it strictly better than Past in Flames? No. Past in Flames itself has flashback, and that's a large appeal to it. Like, you could self-mill yourself, and then Past in Flames from the graveyard, and then start casting all your other instants and sorceries. Nonetheless, though, Will of Jeskai has, like, insane value, especially when you have your commander out. So, I think this is an excellent card in a bunch of spell slinger decks. All right, the next one is a really cool little artifact. It's Adaptive Training Post. It's a 3-mana blue artifact that says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, if this artifact has fewer than 3 charge counters on it, put a charge counter on it. And you can remove 3 charge counters from this artifact when you cast an instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy it, and you may choose new targets for the copy. So we've seen a bunch of cards in Spellslinger that allow you to copy instant and sorcery spells. Some of them copy your spells a whole bunch of times without having to wait a little bit, but they cost like 6 mana, like Thousand Year Storm. Other ones are cheaper, like Adaptive Training Post, but require certain hoops in order to copy things. And I think for 3 mana, Adaptive Training Post does what it's doing quite well. Like, it's not super insane or anything. It's basically lets you copy the 4th instant and sorcery spell you cast every single time. But if you're chaining together a bunch of cheap cantrips or whatever, and you're storming off, this is very nice value for those style of decks. Next, we've got Transcendent Dragon. This is a 6-mana blue creature dragon. It's a 4/3 with flash and flying. And when this creature enters, if you cast it, counter target spell. If that spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it onto the owner's graveyard, then you may cast it without paying its mana cost. So it's a dragon that when it enters the battlefield, you get to counter something and then just cast it for free, which is super sweet. It's very similar to like Keru's Spell Snatcher, which essentially does the exact same thing, except it's the morph version of it. It's a little bit better because you can choose to cast that spell a little bit later on. You can choose to cast it whenever you want to, essentially. But this one's much cheaper, and it's a dragon, which makes it 10 times more exciting. I love dragons. And it's a 4/3 flyer, too, which is just a better body, too. And yeah, it's a dragon. It's a counter spell. They'll see cast a spell. Super, super awesome. Yeah, it's 6 mana, whatever. I don't care. It's a cool dragon. So obviously, like if you're in an Dragon deck or anything that can lower the mana cost of casting Transcendent Dragon, because 6 mana is a lot. But like if you're in an Dragon deck, then it's only 5 mana, which is much, much more reasonable. And then if you have any more cost reducers for dragons, it gets even better. It's a cast trigger. It's not an enter the battlefield trigger. by itself, so you can't like blink it or whatever to repeatedly counter spells. I guess that's for the best. Like it makes the card a lot worse, but also it's going to be a lot less obnoxious. But yeah, I whatever. I don't care. It's a cool dragon. I love dragons. I counter spells. I love countering spells. I'm going to be putting it in my Is a Dragon deck 100%. Then we've got a new enchantment, Aligned Heart. This is a 3-mana white enchantment with Flurry. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, put a rally counter on this enchantment, then create a 1/1 white monk creature token with prowess for each rally counter on it. So Aligned Heart is a gradual token maker for your prowess deck, which is perfect. Here, the only downside is it's kind of slow. Like, the first turn you play it, you're probably going to make a 1/1 monk token, and then next turn, you hopefully cast 2 spells on that turn, and then you make another 1/1 white token. The cool thing here, the Christmas land, if you will, is that it triggers on each turn, not just your own. So in some situation, you could potentially trigger it on not just your own turn, but also on all of your opponent's turn. So if it's a 4-player 3-for-all game, in a single turn cycle, before it comes until it comes to your next turn, you could have 4 rally counters on it, and then you make 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 10. I think I counted correctly. 10 monks over a full turn cycle, which is obviously insane, but also probably never going to happen. Like, what are the odds that you manage to cast 2 spells on every single person's turn? So that's 8 spells total. I think at that point, if you're doing those things, you probably already are in a game-winning position. It's much, much harder than it looks, but it is a dream. It is definitely a dream. And if you're in a deck that can do that, then Aligned Heart gets really, really good. If you only manage to trigger Flurry on your own turns, however, it's very slow. Like 1 monk token on your own turn, and then 2 on the next turn. It's okay. It's not super exciting or anything. I guess it is kind of good. It has prowess, but yeah, I don't know. If you can start triggering it on your opponent's turns as well, though, it gets ridiculous. If it's just on your own turn, it's just okay, I think. The next enchantment, though, is Bonkers. I think this is the strongest card. The new card that's printed in this deck is Tempest Technique. It's a 4-mana white enchantment aura. It has Storm. Storm is a returning mechanic here. Whenever you cast a spell, copy it for each spell you cast before it this turn. You may choose new targets for the copies. Copies become tokens. So enchant creature you control. Enchanted creature you control gets +1/+1 for each enchantment you control. So this is just like you cast like 1 or 2 spells before Tempest Technique. You drop down Tempest Technique, and then boom. Everybody has ethereal armor on them. Or one creature has 1 billion ethereal armors on them. And just that creature just one-shots people immediately. It's fantastic. It's so much damage potential. It can grow your entire team, or it can make one evasive beater just super ultra lethal. It works also very well with stuff like Entity Tracker or any constellation type effects, any eerie or constellation effects, because those type of effects, they don't actually care about the enchantment being cast. They just care about enchantments entering. So Entity Tracker, for example, if you cast Tempest Technique and Storm Count is like 3 or whatever, and you got like 4 Tempest Techniques entering the battlefield, you're drawing 4 cards as well, on top of the fact that you're just about to kill somebody. That's pretty good. Anyway, I like this card. I love auras. Auras have always had a soft spot in my heart, and this is like one of the best finishers I ever printed for an aura deck. My goodness. It's also okay here. It's like fine. But like in an aura deck, my goodness, this card disgusting. I love it. All right, so those were the 10 brand new cards that are exclusive to the precon, and now we're going to check out the rest of the precon, the reprints. And I'm going to be starting with the top 4 most expensive reprints that are coming in the precon. Obviously, these prices are going to be subject to change. All of these cards are probably going to drop significantly a couple weeks after the precon is actually released, because we're currently in pre-sale prices. And also, another important thing to note, now that I'm looking at that Veyran art, this is not going to be the same version of the cards that is going to be in the precon. They're all going to have the matching precon set symbol, obviously, but they're also going to have possibly different artworks as well. They definitely will not have the super exclusive secret lair version of like Veyron Voice of Duality. I'll tell you that much. It's probably going to be the bog standard art that we've seen in like Strixhaven or whatever. But there's something to note. But yeah, so the most expensive cards here is Veyron Voice Duality, which is just one of the best cards in Is It Spellslinger decks, which this deck is essentially. It is a Spellslinger splashing white. That's basically what the deck really is. Nurse's Reversal is a fantastic kind of like tricky counter spellish type card that you can even use on your own spells too. Ghostly Prison is fantastic. Just, you don't want to get punched in the face, and that's a really easy way of preventing that. Lier, Disciple of the Drowned, $4.50. It's okay. I guess it's kind of good. I don't really play it that much. But you can see that none of these cards are over $10 or anything. The reprint value of the precon, it's kind of on the low side, currently at least. I think the whole deck is about like $100, less than $110. So there's not like really crazy reprints to talk about here. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It really depends on how much you have to pay to actually get this deck, right? Like if all the reprints are like over $10, I mean, that's good in theory if you can get the deck for very cheap. But usually speaking, what you pay for the deck is reflective of the actual value of the cards inside. So even though the reprint value of these cards is kind of low, as long as it's not priced as much as, say, I don't know, like a Warhammer precon or something like that, it should be fine. It should even out. Anyway, so those are the 4 most expensive cards. They're not very expensive. And now we're going to check out the rest of the reprints. We're starting with creatures, and we're going to then move to the other card types. And we're always going to start with the lowest mana value and work our way up to the highest mana value. And immediately you can see what I said earlier is actually true. This is essentially an Is It Spellslinger deck that is splashing white, and it's running prowess, which means it says non-creature spells, but really it's focusing on non-creature spells, but specifically instant and sorcery spells. So Goblin Electromancer, your instant sorcery costs 1 less. It's okay. I remember running this a lot back in the day, and I run it less and less even in Spellslinger decks. Third Path Iconoclast and Young Pyromancer, though, these are kind of like go widey style decks, and these are just 2 of the most efficient ways of going wide with tokens in a Spellslinger type of list. Baral and Zev, I think, is also quite good. Gutter Snipe, some damage, some reach for your deck. Haughty Jin, it's a beefy boy that also acts as a mana discount. Monastery Mentor, one of the best pickups for an Is It Spellslinger deck. You usually don't have access to white, obviously, in Is It Spellslinger. When you have access to white, Monastery Mentor is like one of the best cards to look forward to because it poops out a whole bunch of 1/1s as you're casting your instant sorceries or just any non-creature spell, but also those 1/1s have prowess, so they hit really hard. Archmage Emeritus, fantastic card draw in Spellslinger. Manaform Hellkite is pretty cool too. Mangara the Diplomat is kind of diplomatic, like it is also just slowly draws cards in the background, doing its thing, and also kind of deters people from attacking you too much. Stormkiln Artist, one of the best mana generators in Spellslinger, really, really good. Velomachus is also pretty cool. It's top end Spellslinger Matters style beater in the air, which is cool. Then this deck has a bunch of cantrips, instants and sorceries that like basically do a minor thing and draw you cards or like loot very effectively. And these are the cards that add a lot of consistency to the deck, but also they trigger your prowess. They trigger flurry because you could chain them together very easily, and they can cast multiple of these per turn. So they're kind of the bread and butter of this deck. So consider Faceless Looting, Opt, Ponder. These are just like staples in the style of deck. They're really, really important to trigger all your other good payoff cards. Pongify and Preordain and Source of Plowshares, Abrade. These are all just like great interaction spells and cantrip spells. I'm loving this so far. Curse of the Swine. It's okay. It's fine. I was really excited about this card in blue decks, like, I don't know, 2015 or whenever Theros came out. And I was like, wow, this is very innovative, but it's kind of not that great anymore. Those piggies come to your face immediately afterwards, and it can hurt. Electro Dominance, is a really cool card. It allows you to basically cast 2 spells in a single turn, triggering Flurry. Very, very cool. WotC, I see you. Expressive Iteration, fantastic card. I think twice is okay, but it's yet another way of triggering like your prowess and your spellslinger payoffs, yada yada. Compulsive Research is solid. Dismantling Wave is solid. Frantic Search, fantastic for like spellslinger and prowess and flurry. Prismatic Command, really nice and flexible. Big Score, also good too. It's kind of like red ramp, you can call it. Deep Analysis is fine. Writer Replication is kind of like a finisher in any deck, basically. It used to be a staple back in the day. In blue decks, you just jam it and be like, yeah, I'll just copy whatever the best creature is 5 times, and then I'm having a great day. Or sorry, 6 times. No, 5 times. 5 times. I got it right the first time. It's a little bit worse these days when there's a bunch of legendary creatures. Everybody's running more and more legendary creatures, so there's less targets for it, but it's still very, very good. Barrel's Expertise is also very good. Again, it lets you double spell, right? You cast Barrel's Expertise, and then you get to cast another spell for free, and that triggers Flurry, so that's another creative way of double spelling in a single turn. Mana Geyser, just one of the most broken cards in red. It's going to let you double spell and triple spell and quadruple spell in a single turn. No doubt about it. Time Wipe is good. Expansion Explosion is good, and also kind of sometimes a combo piece. Sublime Epiphany, I never thought was very good. I know some people are diehard Epiphany fans, but I think 6 mana is just a little bit too much mana for this. But it's still cool. Magma Opus is another really good reprint here, and it's really cool, and I like it. Destroy the Dead. I've never even seen this Evil Dead art yet. But Vanquish the Horde is like a premier staple board wipe. Love to see it here. Then we get the Artifact Soul Ring, Earth's Mightiest Emblem. We got Signets. We got Felwar Stone. I think we got a Talisman of Opulence or Talisman of Progress to round it out. I kind of just merged the 2 names together because we also have a Curse of Opulence. Absolutely love this card. Shiny Impetus, I also love this card too. It's a little bit of gold and a little bit of treasure making, a little bit of red ramp. Whirlwind of Thought can draw you a ton of cards, especially with all of those cantrips we're packing. Love to see it over here. And then we got the lands. We got a lot of really good lands. So my criteria for a 3-color mana base is I want to see as much mana fixing as possible, but good mana fixing. And what does that mean for good? That means that I want 2-color mana fixing cards, a lot of them, and I want them to all enter the battlefield untapped. That's my main criteria. So like Pain Lands, for example, Adakar Waste and Battlefield Forge are really good. Filter lands like Cascade Bluffs are also really good. And then I want a bunch of cards that can tap for all 3 colors, and I don't care if they enter battlefield tapped or not. Ideally, they enter battlefield untapped, but if they enter battlefield tapped, I'm fine taking a little bit of a tempo loss for perfect mana fixing. So that's my criteria. So based on that criteria, 3 of these cards are really good, and Ash Barrens, not good. I do not like this card very much. Cliftover Sheep is good. Command Tower is good. Evolving Wilds, not good. How are we still getting Evolving Wilds in 2025? Wizards of the Coast, please. Get them out of here. Get them out of here. They're not in the precons anymore. Get them out. Unless you have a very good reason. If it's like a landfall deck, or it's a deck that cares about having lands in the graveyard, fine. You could put Evolving Wilds, but I don't want to see them anymore in these, like, in a random Jeskai Is-It Spellslinker deck. Come on, Wizards, please. Anyway, Exotic Orchard, really good. Ferris Lake is good. Glacial Fortress, good. Irrigated Farmland, no bueno. Not good. It's a plains, so sometimes you want to run it for like your not Loyal Warhound, like Knight of the White Orc kind of effects, like stuff that can care about like fetching up dual lanes. So this is like fine in that sense. I'll give it a pass, but not here. Get it out of here. Mist Monastery is good though. Path of Ventus is good. Perilous Landscape is, I think I would say this was good because it can enter the battlefield untapped and immediately tap for mana. It's not tapping for mana fixing yet, but it's still, doing something if you need it to, and it could also mana fix. So I think this one's fine. Prairie Stream is fine too if you have enough basics, like this deck does too. Reliquary Tower is good. Rugged Prairie is good. Shivan Reef is good. Skycloud Expanse. Okay, this one's kind of pushing it. It's like the worst of the filter lands, but I still think it's fine. Just take it out when you have higher budget. Sulphur Falls is good. And then the temples. Come on, Wizard of the Coast. We're past temples. Give us surveillance, please. At the very least. Ugh, I don't like these temples. But whatever, it's fine. Yeah, so that's the full list. We went through all the cards, the 10 brand new cards and the reprints. Closing thoughts. I think the deck is really sweet. I'm very biased. Jeskai is my favorite. Out of all the 3-color stuff, of all the clans and wedges and schools of magic, whatever you want to call them, Jeskai has always been my favorite. It's always been my bae. I like Izzet Spellslinger, and I like splashing white to get extra goodies from that, and I like being aggro. And this deck is doing all those things. It's Izzet Spellslinger with white. It can be aggro. It makes tokens and stuff, and it casts a lot of instants and sorceries and wants you to cast a bunch of them, or at least 2 per turn. I like all those things. And also, a lot of the cards they added here are good. You know, they have all the good cantrips you're hoping for. They have the spot removal you're hoping for. There's like a couple sus cards, sus inclusions, as you usually do, you know? But that's totally fine. That's kind of expected. I think the deck is going to run pretty darn well, you know? I don't know if the Face Commander or Elsha is going to be better. I assume the Face Commander is still going to be better for the stock list, but I am excited to play this deck. So job well done, Wizards of the Coast. There's also a bunch of brand new cards that I'm very excited for to put in other decks. I really like that dragon for my Izzet Dragon deck. So I like that. And yeah, that's basically what I have to say about the Jeskai Striker Precon. Overall, I'm quite happy with it. And I'm excited to see what the next 4 precons are going to look like. So I think we're going to get 2 more this week, 1 tomorrow and then 1 on Friday, I believe. And I'm going to be reviewing those as soon as they are released. So be sure to subscribe and check back tomorrow, to catch my review of those cards. And then I think next week is going to be the last remaining 2 precons. I could be wrong. I'll have to double check later, but yeah, by the end of next week, we will have all the precons up and ready to look at and analyze. And then starting next week, I'm going to start doing my precon upgrade guides for all 5 of the decks. That's 5 decks. That's a lot of decks. It's going to be a lot of work for me, and I hope you enjoy it because it's a lot of work. But yeah, so that's going to be a lot of Commander Precon content for the next 2 weeks. I hope you enjoy it. Let me know what your favorite Precon or the one you're most hyped for is in the comments section below. And until next time, friends, see ya!